Huge thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video and for sending me these awesome Focal Shape 65 studio monitors. We'll talk about them more later in the video. Eddie Van Halen's Eruption. James Hetfield's tone on Sad But True. Malcolm Young's tone on Back in Black. Zakk Wylde's tone on No More Tears. Misha Mansour's guitar tone on Marigold. And then there's your guitar tone. May God have mercy on our souls. All of these dudes that you love have awesome tone, so why don't you have awesome tone? Well, you're probably making some fundamental mistakes. You're a guitarist, you've been playing for a few years, and you love the riffs that you're making. You're getting all jazzed up, man. You get inspired. You go record those riffs, and then when you listen back to them, your tone sounds like ass. No matter how you mix it, or who tries to touch this thing up, it just does not sound good to you. Well, I have some great news for you. Your tone probably sucks. No, not my tone, Mike. I just can't record it correctly. No. Especially your tone sucks. But Mike, why would this be good news that my tone sucks? Because that means we can fix it. You can't fix a problem that you don't realize is there. So fret not. Because we're about to explain some of the common mistakes that happens that gets people really shitty tone. Maybe be able to point out a handful of ways you could correct that. This is 10 reasons that your guitar tone is trash. Number 1, you're not listening correctly. This may sound stupid, this may sound condescending, but this is hands down the biggest enemy of good tone, is not listening correctly. The thing is, most amateurs don't even realize they're listening to it wrong. Picture this, you're listening to your favorite album, you got the headphones on, you're jamming out, your favorite riff comes on, and you're just like, oh, it's so gross, man, it's so cool. I gotta go play this myself. So then you take the headphones off, you go to your amplifier, you plug in your guitar to start playing your favorite riff. Stop. Where is your listening position? What is a listening position? A listening position is where your ears are relative to where the speakers are. And it's not just oh, it's down here and I'm up here. If it's down here and pointed towards the ground, it's not gonna sound the same as if it's down here and pointed at your face. In a studio or when you're wearing headphones, the speakers are pointed directly at your ears. While playing your amp, the speakers are pointed directly at your knees, because you know that's where I do my best mixing, is from the knees. That's where some artists have done their best performances. Giggity, 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 giggity. Look, try it yourself. Play through your amp while you're standing up, standing next to your amplifier, and then play the same thing, but sit down next to it so that it's pointed at your ears. There's a massive difference in the tone that you hear. This is not rocket science, but you're just like, oh, that's just where I'm sitting at in the room. Yes, it's not just, it is where you're sitting at in the room. The one thing that we take for granted that we don't realize is so, like, the most important thing of dialing a tone is hearing it correctly. It's this exact phenomena, which is why certain amplifier cabs have an angled cab, so it's pointed more up towards your face instead of shooting at your crotch. But even that is not a perfect solution by a long shot. Even if you are sitting down in front of your speaker cab, you're still also hearing the room that you're in, because all that sound goes and bounces around the whole room, and eventually those make it back to your ear. I mean, fairly quickly, actually. That colors the sound as you're perceiving it. It's basically the same as you EQing your guitar tone after you record it. It can make a drastic impact on the tone. Your room is its own kind of EQ filter. The most honest way of actually hearing your guitar tone, in my opinion, is through studio monitors in a treated room. You should definitely get your room some acoustic treatment and get yourself a great pair of studio monitors like these Focal Shape 65s. These things are absolutely outstanding. The speaker cones on these babies are actually made of flax. Yes, the same stuff that you eat to keep yourself regular and help with your digestive health actually makes fabulous speaker cones. Very rigid, neutral material that does not have its own resonance. It also has double passive radiators. which means nothing to you. In your normal near-field studio monitors, you have usually a port on the back that allows for the low end to resonate out. These double passive radiators, instead of it being on the back where you'd normally find it, is on the sides. Each passive radiator has double suspension, which means not only that your speaker is going to be more compact, but your low end is going to be tighter and more accurate than a usual port. And they don't normally say this, but you can actually get away with having your speakers a little bit closer to your wall. And the tweeter, which is an M-shaped reader, is actually inverted. It's a very different design than usual, and this allows for less distortion and better dispersion. That is, you can stand around the room and it'll sound mostly the same. But Mike, I like a lot of distortion. Shut up. When you're trying to monitor something accurately, you want no distortion. You want transparency. You want your distortion to come from here, not from here. Buy yourself a pair of Focal Shape 65s, get those MFers ear level, and have them oriented as an equilateral triangle. So you're gonna have those with the center of the cones equal distance from one another, and those are going to be equal distance from your ears. What's also cool about the Focal Shape 65s is they come with these adjustable feet. So if you can't quite get your speakers at ear level, either they're a little bit too low, a little bit too high, just use the feet and they'll be aimed at your ears. This is weird, Mike. I just want to listen to my amp. It feels way better. Sure, but almost no one else will be listening the same way that you're listening in your room. If you're tracking in a professional studio, the engineer will be listening on the studio monitors, not with your amp. And when that track is finally done and published, all of your soon-to-be fans will be listening in their headphones, not sitting with you in your bedroom like a loser. Even if you're playing live, any venue worth its salt always mics your cabinet and sends it through the PAs. So it's not like people are gonna hear that crap mostly from the stage anyway. At the end of the day, you're mostly coming out of other people's speakers, not your own amp cab. So you should dial your tone as if it's gonna come out of someone else's speakers. I don't like the way my tone sounds in monitors, Mike. Good! That means that you got yourself an honest pair of monitors like the Focal Shape 65s, and it's revealing the problems that you need to change. It is a good thing to hear your tone honestly and adjust it so it sounds great everywhere. Trust me on this. This is easily the #1 problem with people dialing guitar tones, is just not realizing how it translates. Number 2, your signal is not clean. Where does the tone come from on a guitar? Does it come from your amp? Does it come from the pickups? Does it come from the cabinet? The answer is yes. And every single part of your signal chain, that is every element that is in the path between hitting strings and coming out a speaker, impacts your tone. Amateur guitarists always miss this because no one ever really explained to them how the sound actually gets made. They just know, I hit string, guitar cable connect guitar to amp, it go from string to speaker, go boom. And for the record, that's fine to start. That's all you need to know. You want to make some sound. Great stuff. But because you're just trying to plug it in and have a good time to start out, you miss the importance of a clean signal. What do you mean by signal, Mike? Well, when you strum that string, it is vibrating above a magnet that is inside of your pickup. And those vibrations going across a magnet creates an electrical signal. Yes, it's a weird phenomena that there's a lot of science to explain, but just know when metal vibrates along a magnet, it creates electricity. That electrical signal flows from where that's being generated at the magnet the whole way through a ton of stuff out of your speakers. And along the way, that signal can be colored. But when it comes to guitar tone, we actually want to color it as it goes through. If you have unclean signal, it's already colored before it's getting processed, which means you're coloring something that is kind of gross. Any of the smaller gross stuff that's already in your signal that's unclean gets exaggerated when it gets blown up and amplified. You can test this for yourself. Buy the cheapest guitar cable you can find, just the absolute dirt awful guitar cable, and then test that against an excellent, delicious, high quality guitar cable, like from my friends at Happy Cable Company. Just test each cable right from your guitar right into the front of an amp and see how it sounds. You're going to notice a significant difference in clarity, low end, and dynamic response. It will make a big difference. And I've talked about this before, but I want to re-emphasize, for cleanliness of signal, for transparency of signal, make sure you have good cables. Not just any cable will do. If a 10-foot cable is being sold for $15 to $20, it is trash. Do not use it. Unless it's just for practice or just for screwing around, fine, whatever. If you're using it for a serious application where someone other than you is going to listen to it, do not use a crappy cable. You can get 20% off the amazing cables from the Happy Cable Company by subscribing to Night School, link in the description. But that's just your cables. You need to make sure your signal is clean across all of your equipment. Most quality gear that you purchase should have a clean signal, but it can get damaged. The most common example of this is when your guitar has a cold solder joint and the ground stops working, so then you get all this hum that's coming through. It actually makes you lose a little bit of loudness in your signal. It helps you lose some dynamic, but then it also is just always colored by this. If you have never done this before, try and take some time to pay attention to whether or not your signal is clean. And if you want to find out more about that, watch my guitar recording essentials video over on Night School. 3, you've probably added too much treble or presence into your tone because you're a metalhead and you are ignorant. Not stupid, just ignorant. One of the things that we love about metal guitars is how they scream. They seem to have this very biting, aggressive crunch, and it's it's so good. One of our first instincts when dialing a guitar tone is to boost the treble and to boost the presence, or really just boosting the high end of the signal in general, because it gives this perceived clarity, it gives it a little bit of a bite. But if you don't know what you're listening for, it can become very strident and shit. Tinny trash. Most times we definitely do want to give some embellishment to the presence in the treble, but how much is too much?
I like the presence versus the treble. Treble's a little strident.
Well, that depends upon your amp. All amps will respond differently. Their EQ points and their curves are all different. Getting to know your amp and also getting to know how good guitar tones sound in mixes is crucial to knowing how to dial your tone. But more importantly, when you're dialing guitar tone, you have to pay attention to ear fatigue. Ear fatigue is when you are listening to something that is the same for a very long period of time, and your ear and how you perceive it starts to kind of normalize it. Even if it is out of balance or it is harsh, your brain shuts that off. Ever been playing guitar on an amp and you find yourself, while you play along, driving the treble and the presence a little bit higher and a little bit higher as you go along? It's a pleasing and cool sound to drive those boys up, yeah. But your ears adjust to it fairly quickly. So when that does adjust, and then you push up the treble or the presence a little more, it gives you more of that emotional hit, a little bit of that dopamine release. That same satisfying effect gets elicited, even though it's probably a horrific sound to anyone else who walks in the room. If you do boost it that much over time, take a break for 30 minutes, don't listen to anything. Come back and then play that guitar tone, and it'll probably sound like tinny ass. I'll just boost the bass to compensate. No! You have just made a bad problem worse. Pushing your bass too hard will turn your tone into a flubby mess. I made a video with my friend Eric on dialing guitar tone with just an amplifier over on Night School. I might actually publish the first part of that video on this channel, we'll see. The tone sounded awesome. Take a listen to this. If you want to learn more, check it out on Night School. 4, your master volume is wrong. But Mike, I like my amp at this volume. Yes, look, I totally get that. You want to play at a volume that is comfortable for you to play at, or that inspires you. Or you might have neighbors or other people live in your house and you want to be respectful. Totally get that. Those will be sacrifices you have to make when practicing, for sure. But when you're recording or performing, you have to pay attention to how your master volume colors the tone. Yes, the master volume does color your tone pretty substantially. This will be different on different amps. And by the way, if you're running a solid state amp, just toss it in the trash. Not worth recording. Or make it a practice amp. Just don't use it for any practical application. Amp sims in your computer are typically better than any solid state stuff. But if you're running a tube amp, like an adult, then pushing the master volume pushes the power amp. While it doesn't color your tone as much as the preamp, it does color your tone.
So if I turn this master volume up, listen what happens.
Yeah.
bass goes away.
Hate it. The harder you drive that boy, the more mids come through. What that actually sounds like depends upon your amp. And pushing those mids forward and getting that really gnarly, strong attack can be really cool in certain circumstances. Dialing in your preamp EQ is obviously extremely important, but do not miss the fact that you could be completely screwing yourself not dialing in your master volume correctly, especially when you're in the same room with that thing, and going from 1 to 4 is just exceedingly deafening. Yes, I can tell why that would be hard to listen to. That's why you should run that boy directly into your interface by using one of these delicious Soar load boxes and play with it through your Focal Shape 65. I cannot plug these things enough. Your pair of delicious monitors to make sure that it's not so loud that you're not going to be able to tell the difference between the guitar tone. Again, we get into way more detail about that over on Night School, link in the description. Recording guitars with a real amp. 5, you forgot about bass guitar. For younger guitarists, so many of you don't realize just how much of that awesome guitar tone is actually bass tone. Not just in the low range, though definitely low and low mids, pay attention, but in the mid range. Getting a great guitar tone with a big, woofy low end can be so cool, but make sure that you understand how that works in relation to a bass guitar being in your mix. And really just all of the other instruments while we're at it. Going back to Ghost of Perdition, let's listen to it all together, and then let's listen to it with just guitar, and then just bass. There's really not that much low end on the guitars. Understanding the guitar as part of an ensemble is the key to dialing in your tone. It's not just you, it's not just a Guitar Hero, it is a group effort. And yes, you want your own unique identity as a part of that group, but you guys need to work together. And that starts with realizing the guitar is a mid-range instrument. Focus on your mid-range and embellish the lows and highs from there. The greatest thing you can do to know what actually sounds good, besides actually working in a studio, is finding files of all of the instruments separated and listen to the guitar tones that are being used, and then listen to how that fits into the greater context of what's going on, and take a look at what the bass sounds like, take a look at what the drums sound like, and then how these all work together as a team to deliver a final experience to you, the listener. You will learn so much more. 6, your amp sucks or your amp sim sucks. At some point, you have to have quality gear to make quality sound. That's just a fact of life. Just like you can't have a crappy cable, you can't have a crappy amp. You can make any gear sound good. You can create an environment where something has the ability to sound good, but that is not a rule. That is an exception to the greater rule, which is you get what you pay for. Solid state amps these days to me are a complete waste of money. You can get so many cheaper options that sound better on your computer. Just do not record solid state amps. If you have the means, getting yourself an awesome tube amp is fabulous, but quality amps are very expensive. If you want fantastic tone, very fast and very cheap, get yourself a good amp simulator. There's gonna be a ton of people telling me I'm a dipshit in the comments, but for the amount of money you would pay for a Friedman BE50 Deluxe, you could get yourself a top tier laptop and some of the world's greatest amp sims with the world's greatest IRs. We're gonna come back to IRs. In sound, to the uninitiated ear, indistinguishable. The Fredman Digital Fred Head amp sim absolutely kills. They even got some decent IRs. Anything from the Bogren amp knob series is fantastic, and they have very good IRs. If you are not great at dialing tone, or if you're just never happy, go with Bogren. You will instantly, just by turning one knob, get the tone you want, or get something that is very usable. The Auto 1111 is killer at sculpting fat, beefy, awesome, unique metal tones. I did a whole video doing a metal shootout with that guy. Click the link in the description and you can get yourself half off of that bad boy. You clicked on the right, I'm just giving shit away for way less than it's worth. I am such a good man today. And Neural DSP stuff is fantastic as well. If you're not willing to spend the vast amounts of time and money it takes to get a really awesome amp, get yourself an amp sim. You're not lesser than, and anyone who shits on you is an asshole. It is not only very viable, but most of the people that you listen to probably do it. Number 7, your mic placement is not correct. Glenn Fricker made an outstanding video explaining why and how mic placement is exceedingly important to a good guitar tone. It is hands down one of the most important parts of any guitar tone. You can spend thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours of time trying to figure out how to dial this absolutely great tone. And if you don't place the mic on your cabinet correctly, all of that is wasted completely. Learning how to mic a cab really well can also take tons of time and also sometimes lots of money depending upon what kind of cab you want and discovering what kind of cab you want. So my suggestion, and the suggestion of anyone who isn't fucking stupid, is to just use impulse responses. Impulse responses, or IRs for short, are just files that are the capture of a specific cabinet speaker with a specific miking mix. Using IRs will make your tones far more consistent and much better quality. Take any guesswork or potential human error out of your recording process and your tone dialing process. Just get some IRs. But Mike, I already use IRs and my tone still sounds like shit. Number 8, get better IRs. Just like how you might be miking your amp badly, you might just have shitty IRs. Happens far more often than you realize. Even if you get an awesome amp sim, and they almost always come with their own IRs, a lot of times their IRs are kind of crap. The first thing I test on an amp sim after dialing in a reasonably decent tone is swapping out the IRs. And I would say most times the IRs that I put in sound better than whatever garbage they put in. Bonehammer does have a great selection of IRs, but I would definitely recommend my friends over at York Audio IRs. York Audio IRs were rated the #1 IR in guitar world, and I use them regularly. I highly recommend them. They have my official and unofficial endorsement. You can get 10% off of York Audio IRs by subscribing to Night School. It will permanently upgrade your tone. You will be dialing tone at a brand new bass level that will unlock all of the problems you've been having up to this point. All of the people that you listen to and you love their guitar tone, they use York Audio IRs. If I could name drop, I would, but I've been told I'm not allowed to do that, and that's not the way that Justin wants to promote his product. But all I can say is the people you admire use York Audio. You gotta get them. Again, 10% off, subscribe to Night School. And the best way to test your IRs and find which ones you like, yet again, is by having an amazing monitoring system. Monitors that don't lie, like these, and say it with me, Focal Shape 65. Getting reliable monitoring is a must for choosing the right IR for you. 9, change your strings. It's a frickin' meme at this point, but seriously, change your strings. Recording with old strings means you get less top end and less resonance. This is exclusively bad. Not good things. Change your darn strings, record with fresh strings. I shouldn't have to keep repeating myself about this. Number 10, your playing is sloppy. You can do all of the things that I listed in this video. And if your playing sucks ass, it doesn't matter. John Petrucci tells a story of when he was touring with Joe Satriani and several other people with Italian last names. I remember being on a G3 tour with Joe Satriani, Petrucci went on. I've always been so enamored of him, his skills and his tone. One day I asked him, can I play through your rig? And funny thing was, once I played through his rig, I didn't sound like Joe at all. I sounded like me. And I was hit with the realization that because the guitar is a tactile instrument, so much of the tone comes from my touch. That also means if you just suck at playing, it doesn't matter what tone you have, the suck will come through. There is no way to saturate correct performance or EQ out your fuck ups. John was talking specifically about style, but this really does boil down to performance as well. If you want to sound like Dimebag Darrell, you gotta play as tightly as Dimebag Darrell. If you want to sound like James Hetfield, you have to downpick and palm mute in the same style as James Hetfield. But more importantly than any of that, your performance needs to be clean and precise. I like messy things. Okay, you need to be consistently messy with yourself. That sounds really gross. I'm talking about guitar. No amount of time or money spent on gear, tone dialing, mixing is going to make your performance sound like a professional. You need to actually sound like a professional. If you don't put in the work to learn how to play, you will always sound amateur. Thank you so much to Sweetwater for these amazing, say it with me, Focal Shape 65 monitors that you can find at the link in the description and get some for yourself. I highly recommend them. Delicious. Be sure to subscribe to Night School and upgrade your game and support the channel. Greatly appreciate it. And if you want to learn a little bit about mixing guitars, why don't you go ahead and click over here on this video where I did remix Iron Maiden and use that awesome Presonus Faderport 16. I think a lot of people were surprised how I improved it. Don't believe me that I did improve it? Well, click here and hear for yourself. I think you'll be surprised. Or not. I don't care. Shut up and click. No, click.